Now we're going to take a little bit of a high-level overview about content, or more specifically, digital assets. So let's take a brief gander and talk about digital assets. First off, what exactly are assets? Very simply put, an asset in Liferay is all of the different content types that we're able to add within the platform or within Liferay itself. So the big ones that we're going to be highlighting in this course is going to be web content and documents and media. Over in the content course, we talk about this list in much more detail, and we spend a lot more time talking about content, assets, and kind of how to create and manage them. Since this is the fundamentals, we're just going to get you or give you enough to get started and to kind of play around. But for a lot more info, a lot more detail, head over to the content course. So we're talking about assets. So assets are all of the different content types in Liferay. So I like to say assets is kind of like the umbrella term that encapsulates all of our different types of content. So all of our different assets exist or are used in what we call the asset framework. Within the asset framework, all of our different assets have a couple of different common features amongst all of them. Let's highlight a couple over here. So the first one is going to be metadata. All of our different assets have the same fields that we can fill out. So things like what is the name of the asset, when was it created, when was it modified, and there's a couple of other sort of keywords or metadata we can add to our assets. Permissions. We are able to control who is able to access our specific assets. Very fine-grained details we can have with our permissions. We can also relate assets to one another. So one of the common examples is, let's say I'm making a blog post and I want to make it a series. So part 1, part 2, part 3. What I can do is I can relate these different blog posts to each other. So I can relate part 3 to part 2 and part 2 to part 1. So that way, if you read part 4, you can go back and read part 3, part 2, and part 1 very easily. So related assets allows for us to create a link between one asset and another. And what's cool about this is it doesn't have to be the same type of content. I can relate one blog post to a file I upload into Liferay, or I can relate a message board post to standard web content, something like that. Categories and category hierarchy. Categories are a way in which we can apply metadata or a specific type of metadata to our assets. This falls under the realm of taxonomy and folksonomy. Comments. All of our different asset types have the ability for our users to leave comments, as well as an indicator of whether or not it's good or not through some sort of rating system. You can also take a look at how many people have viewed your asset as well. There will be a little view counter there that you can take a look at. Workflow integration. We'll talk about workflow a little bit later, but if you already know what it is, all of our assets are integrated within Liferay's workflow engine. So you can do some review. And then you can also publish assets through a specific application called the Asset Publisher. And we'll get a little bit of practice with that later. So let's first talk about the big types of content that you're going to be experiencing, or the big types of assets. So the first one is called web content or static web content. So web content is kind of one of the foundational types of assets within Liferay. What you can do with web content is you can add some simple text, you can add images, or a combination of the two to kind of convey whatever it is that you're trying to, convey. If you want a banner, if you want, a footer, maybe you want some sort of information displayed within our sites, we can use web content. Now, the first part in the journey of creating web content and displaying it is figuring out which application corresponds with it. So when you create web content, you're going to typically create it over in the site administration. it's over there that you create it, but that's where it's going to be stored. If you want to display web content, what you'll need to do is add the web content display widget to one of your site pages, and then select the web content you want to display through that specific widget. If that sounds a little bit complicated, we'll work through that pretty soon. So using a widget to display the web content is how we display web content within our sites. So web content is very easy to make, and it allows for us to build our sites out pretty quickly. The other type of asset that's heavily used, heavily emphasized within Liferay is documents and media, or just documents. So Liferay's documents and media application allows for us to upload a bunch of different file types. So whether it's PDFs, Excel sheets, MP3s, the movies that you download, various images, the cat GIFs that you enjoy looking at. Whatever the case is, all of these different types of files are able to be uploaded into Liferay, and when we do, we're going to be uploading them into this place called the Documents and Media. So all of the files we upload, we technically say they're uploaded into Liferay's Documents and Media repository. So one of the new features here in Liferay DXP 7.1 is a couple of tools that are used to help us create sites in a more elegant way, in a more modern way. So the first one is known as page fragments. Page fragments give developers kind of an edge. They can use all of their front-end development knowledge to create the kind of infrastructure for content. So for example, I'm not really a front-end guy, but maybe you are, or maybe you have some front-end skills. What you can do is create sort of the infrastructure or the scaffolding for content. So for example, maybe you want to create something where it's just a hero image in the background, and then you can put some text. I personally have no idea what that looks like in front-end code, HTML, CSS, or JavaScript, but maybe you or someone you know does. So they can create the sort of infrastructure for someone like me, and they can just tell me, hey Eddie, use this, upload the image you want to use, type the text that you want there, and you're done. They'll give you your banner or your footer. So that's what page fragments allows for us to do. Combo that with content pages, all of a sudden you can create pages dedicated to content very quickly, right? Again, get some front end guys to get you the page fragments to work with, and then you just add whatever it is that you want to add. Throw an image here, add some text there, and you're pretty much on your way. And we'll take a look at this pretty soon. Another feature here in Liferay 7.1 is modern navigation. So this gives us a lot more control over the navigation of our pages, right? You can click a specific page and end up somewhere. It's very simple, right? But we have much more control. What kind of page do you go to? How many menus do you display? How many navigation bars do you have per page? What happens if you click this? What happens if you go there? You have a lot more control over that here in Liferay 7.1. So keep those in mind, right? Very cool features. Page fragments comboed together with content pages, and then a new way of navigation, or new tool, I should say, gives us a lot more control over the navigation bar or menus themselves. So let's do a brief recap and review. Right, same story. I'm sure you know what to do now. Go ahead and read through your book a little bit, right? Hone in on some of that concepts that maybe you want to know a little bit more on. And then when you're ready, go ahead and fill out that summary page real quick. Let's go ahead and review that again once you're ready. So first off, Liferay's assets are all of the different types of content. So again, I described it as sort of a umbrella term, right? All of the different types of content within Liferay are technically assets, right? The analogy I like to make is, squares, circles, and triangles all fall under the umbrella of the term shapes. So web content and documents and media fall under the umbrella of assets. So all of these different types of content can be added to Liferay, the platform itself. If you want to quickly create our websites, the way to do so is using web content or web content assets. So get some text there really quick, get an image, all of that can be done through web content assets. The documents and media assets consist of a variety of file types that are stored in sites. Again, all types of content within Liferay, whether we're talking documents and media, web content, or any type of asset, is going to be stored within a site. So Liferay provides the documents and media repository to help users manage assets. And whenever we upload files into Liferay, they're going to be stored in the documents and media repository. So again, we can upload PDFs, the torrented movies that we have, or our favorite GIFs or GIFs. We won't start that argument. Anyways, so assets in the documents and media repository can be organized in document folders. Right, so we can create different folders within Liferay's documents and media to be able to sort through them. And then Livingston is able to use common features of assets to solve their file sharing and communication needs. So this is our recap here of assets summary.